Mind that you're up. There we go.
Happy Wednesday. Good morning. Welcome to our webinar, guys. I'm Brad Heath, designer of the Safe Tack Reverse, author of the Honest to Goodness Truth about horse trailers, and owner of Double D Trailers. We've got my favorite son-in-law, Caleb, my sidekick, working with us today. I can't say favorite son-in-law, but for about another week because I've got another daughter getting married, and number two son-in-law is coming along strong.
You
So
can
he'll
still
all
you can still say favorite.
he'll always be the favorite first, right? He'll always be the first son-in-law. For those of you joining us for the first time, I would encourage you to go back and look at our part one series that we did about a month ago with Rebecca. We're so excited to have with us today and appreciative of Dr. Rebecca Husted. She has a PhD in animal physiology from Clemson University. Sounds really cool. She's a retired U.S. Army signal officer, a combat veteran, and the president of Technical Large Animal Emergency Rescue. She spent decades training veterinarians, first responders around the world, and helped write and edit the first textbook on large animal rescue. She literally wrote the book. I'm going to be quiet today. Rebecca's going to be doing the driving, and I look forward to just really diving in and learning a lot. So, Miss Rebecca, and I won't call you Miss Rebecca, just Rebecca. I'll
It's
only call
okay.
you Rebecca. The standing rule is if you're rude, you have to call her Dr. Houston. But other than that, she's Rebecca.
Oh, that's right. Well, I took off. For those of you that saw the first one, I'm going to take off on Brad's theme of being a pilot, and you'll see some of those kinds of things as we go through the thing. I'm so glad to see so many people on here. And Brad and Caleb, y'all just jump in if there's something in here or if we get a really good question. At the end, we will stay on for questions. Last time we ran a little late, but I think it was worth it. We had a lot of folks that were on. We're going to talk about actually, we're going to have a wreck and what can we do ahead of time to improve our chances of rescue and survival in that wreck. And uh, let's get at it. So
Rock and roll.
I got to start with some of the things that are in here are tough. We're going to have wrecks. We've got injured horses. We've got dead animals. We're going to talk about all those kinds of things. It is a little bit graphic. It's a difficult context, if nothing else. And, for those of us that look at these things all the time, I've got a little PTSD, I'm sure, about it. Every once in a while, I'm in tears over it. If I start crying in the middle of the presentation, I'm sorry, but this is some of the tough things. I'm not going to talk about how to access into a horse trailer and get those animals out. That's just way more detailed than we have time to cover here. I've got lots of links to those kind of things. There's free webinars on my webinar, and I got the QR code for you guys. But we're going to talk about all the things you can do as an owner ahead of time and if it actually happens to you to look sane, to look smart, and to increase the chances of saving your animals, right? That's what it's really all about. And a lot of that comes down to your choice of trailer ahead of time, as you're going to see. So I made some assumptions and responsibilities statements here. We talked about that, and that is the link to part one webinar that Brad did, and I really enjoyed that webinar. I learned a lot, and his attitude towards safety matches mine as far as being the pilot in command. Once you get in that truck and trailer, we're assuming that you're doing your homework. You're doing the preventative maintenance, you're doing the route planning, you're thinking ahead, doing all the right things, and taking the responsibility for driver safety, doing maintenance. We discussed that in that first webinar. I'm just re-emphasizing it here. I have no financial interests, no funding sources other than I do my training classes in large animal rescue. I have no conflicts of interest. I don't have stock in any trailer companies, and I have adhered to the AVMA's principles of veterinary medical ethics as a veterinary technician. So why are we really here? It's vicarious education. That's really, really, when we look at these wrecks and things, what we're doing is we're learning from other people's pain and suffering, right? And hopefully we're learning good things. And so it's an intimate motivation for me to learn from other people's problems, right? And a trailer missing a roundabout, I mean, we're all human, things happen, but when it happens at 1 o'clock in the morning, I got a really good idea why that happened. probably going a little bit fast, maybe a little snoozy, those kind of things. We're going to learn from other people's mistakes. Fortunately, in this one, the the injuries were minor to the people and to the animals. Although I love to look at these things, right? I mean, dang, trailer stuck with the truck, but there you go. How did you break off the ball? That's tough to do. All right, the
Maybe
other reason we're what? Go
maybe it
ahead,
was like
Brad.
the guy Charles up in Vermont, I think, where his hitch rusted into that we showed the last time. That's the
Hmm.
only way you can break off.
Exactly, because we're going to show you later in the presentation. If you do it right, it stays together. And then the other reason that we're here is we're trying to prevent, losing our horses and getting hurt ourselves, but we also want to kill somebody else. I mean, this person slammed into 5 other vehicles and killed this lady at an intersection. So some was going wrong, and perhaps they weren't able to stop. Maybe they didn't have the appropriate truck for their trailer, but that's just awful. And then this person, I can't explain this one, Brad. I mean, I have some theories, but I really can't explain this one completely. His trailer and his truck literally came apart. That's the trailer, that's the nose of the trailer, and of course, his horse fell out of the trailer, and then somebody hit his horse and they died.
Oh
So
wow.
you're still responsible. So this is the worst case scenarios, folks. This is what we're really trying to prevent. It's bad enough that you lose your animals. It's bad enough that you get hurt. But if you get somebody else killed, that's on your conscience the rest of your life. And you're probably going to end up in jail for it too. So suffice to say that it happens often enough that I speak at the National Horse Carriers Association conference every year. They actually just called me the other day. They want me to speak again this coming January because they have realized that these kinds of things take attention. Whether you're hauling, this is one of the big fancy owners unloading his horse, multi-million-dollar racehorse and those kind of things, whether it's that or it's my horse's torque. He's my baby. He's 23 years old. He's been with me since he was 5, and he is my baby. Four-legged or not, he's my baby. I can't imagine having a problem in my trailer with him in there, right? So even if it's not some famous racehorse stallion, it's my baby and it's valuable to me, even if it's not multi-million dollars. He's worth millions to me, right? So we know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. It happens to enough people that we need to think about that. So um, a lot of it comes down to attitudes, and Brad talked a lot about attitudes in that previous webinar. If you didn't watch it and you didn't learn something from his discussions of what they do with pilots and training and thinking about attitudes towards whether or not we're even going to get up in that plane, it's truly attitude is a big thing. And the most dangerous thing you're going to get in all day is your vehicle. The airplane is actually pretty damn safe compared. If you look at the safety statistics, it's damning, right? It's the vehicle that's going to hurt you. So that's my driving resume. You guys are welcome to read for yourselves. And I've been in one wreck in all those miles that I was the driver. And the girl that hit me was deemed at fault. I was completely out of it. I've gotten 2 speeding tickets at 17. You know you're going to get one at 17, right? And then I got one at 56 years old, and I was driving a rental car, and I had my friends in the vehicle, and I was doing 70 and a 55, just running my mouth and having fun. There you go. It happens to everybody, right? But when you get in the vehicle with me, and that happens a lot because I travel around the world, people pick me up at the airport and they're driving me, and really quickly they realize whether I'm in the passenger seat or you're in the passenger seat and I'm driving, the assistant driver position is a serious thing. It's your life too. So I don't sit in that position, just run my mouth and not do anything. I'm always looking, helping, I'll make comments. And usually what happens, Brad, I'm sure it happens to you and Caleb too, people get offended. Like, oh, yeah, I'm paying attention. Yeah, I know. My ass is in this seat too. So if I'm in this vehicle, I'm going to be paying attention. So don't get mad. And people look at me like, and I'm like, that's just the way it is. In the military, it's the assistant driver position. That implies it's work, right? So be careful before you get in a vehicle with me. And this is proof that it happens to anybody. This is my second ex-husband. I've been through a couple. I'm on number 3. I'm keeping mark. Um, there's our setup on the side of the road in the parking lot. Changing the inside dually tire on a truck, that's a really a pain in the ass. And we did it in 17 minutes. And here's me and a girlfriend a couple years ago, Beth Ann, we're driving down the road, had a delamination of a tire, which I actually got that tire replaced for free because it was a true manufacturer defect. Brad talked a little bit about tires and some of the challenges with that in the last webinar. And 17 minutes in parking lot. And actually, it was a parking lot of a tire dealership, and the guys were watching. They came out afterwards and they said, "Hey, do you girls need a job?"
Yeah,
I was
you
like,
guys should
"No."
get on the pit crew for like a NASCAR or something. That's impressive.
Exactly.
17 minutes.
Bam, bam. But
Yep.
I got all the stuff, right? Like if you, the attitude is it could happen, so what am I going to have? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about, the most common trailer emergencies since we're talking about wrecks and emergencies. The most common emergency happens to everybody. If you have a trailer long enough, you're going to have a tire problem. No matter, I have good tires, load range G tires on my living quarters trailer. I have 12,000-pound axles. I do all the right things, and I still occasionally have a tire problem, right? But this is what you need in your trailer if you're going to deal with those kind of things. The whole point of this is the attitude towards how you do this. This is me, on the side of the road, had that's the another tire problem. In this case, it was a screw in a tire. Of course, it's going to happen. And that's my husband, my hero. That's the third husband. I'm keeping this one. Y'all can't have him. Um, but how do we react to these situations? Because this is how it reacts when you have a true wreck, right? How you practice doing these things, it's basically practicing for a wreck. Do you pull over as far as possible before you get out of that truck? Do you have safety vests? Do you put them on your body? Do you can see I'm taking pictures while Mark's doing the tire change, but is somebody else watching the traffic besides just taking pictures? You know, where is the safe place? In this case, we were really lucky. It's a beautiful day. I'm on a nice straight road. It's not pouring down rain or snow or those kind of things. But that's the attitude is we're practicing for the eventuality of having a really nasty wreck. So if you see fire or smoke, you call 911. If you are a female alone, I'm going to tell you, call 911. They'll send a cop out. That cop will park behind you, put on his flashers while you change your tire. It's no harm, no foul, ladies. You know some of the problems that we have. If you're a gentleman and you're worried about it, call 911. There's no ego involved. They're getting paid to come out and support you, right? Be prepared to deal with it safely. And the most dangerous thing in this scenario is all that traffic that's come flying by you, right? Leave the horses in the trailer. If you've got drive-up chocks, you should be able to leave your horses on the trailer. There's no situation like this that you should have to extricate horses from the trailer unless there's fire and smoke. And then, of course, you're going to put out your cones and flares and lights. It's practicing for a real situation. That's what you would do in a real situation, right? And then, of course, if you're going to change your tire, there's a lot of information on the internet on how to do that. This is how I do it. I ensure that the lugs are loose. I set my drive-on ramp for the good tire, back that trailer or pull it forward onto the good tire onto the drive-on ramp. And then I set my parking brake. I chalk the other side just in case, because you never know, especially if it's, here in Georgia, it's pretty flat, but in other places it can be not flat. And then do your work to do your tire change, right? But the whole time you're doing that, you got to be looking at traffic because people are dumb and they are not paying attention. They're on their phones. They're all those things. Comments, Brad or Caleb?
I'm just absorbing and soaking all this in, but the comment about the cell phones, oh,
100%.
we'd live in Wilmington and I mean, you can pull up to a stoplight at any given day and pass a line of 10 cars and 8 folks are just sitting looking at their phone while they're driving, not even stop. So it's definitely an issue. And I think pulling over to the side of the road, it's a great opportunity to get smacked because people do not pay attention. So be aware.
Yep.
I like the cones, the vests. I think it's great. Police car, ideal.
Yep, and that lane is only 8 feet wide, and if I had parked right there on the rumble strip, we would have no room to work on that tire. So we pulled as far as we felt comfortable with the weight of the horses in there. If it's raining, if it's muddy, all those things you got to assess. You may end up getting yourself in trouble. That's a two-wheel drive truck. It's not a four-wheel drive. I might not be able to pull it out. But hey, I'd rather have a tow truck have to come pull me out than be in an unsafe situation. Give yourself plenty of room.
Yep.
And then, of course, get pictures. So a lot of this goes back to emergency preparation and response, survival, right? Thinking about survival. So the simple things are what to have in your truck and trailer before the emergency, how to help, thinking about being a team. Do you train the people in your vehicle to be that assistant driver? Do you train the people when they get in a truck, hey, we're not moving until you put your seatbelt on? Those kinds of things. What would we actually do? Have you thought through it when you have strangers in the vehicle with you? If we had a wreck, what would you actually do? So that you can coordinate better. Because somebody has to be the boss, somebody has to be in charge. Whoever that person is needs to step up, right? And then what you're doing with these things is you're preparing for those things, right? And to me, the truck and trailer wrecks are less scary than the truck and trailer fires. We'll talk about those last. So here we go. I'm going to try really hard not to talk about specific brands of trailers. I try not to bash on various types of trailers. We all know that there are a few things out there that are just awful. I'm going to try not to talk about those. Otherwise, if you see some of the brand logos and things in my pictures, then that's data. That's results. That's not me trying to bash on anybody, right? Don't get mad. If you own a trailer manufacturing thing and your trailers end up here, don't get mad at me. Wait, I did say I wasn't going to talk about this, but that's a Brender up. And it just happened a couple of weeks ago.
She says, I'm gonna make an exception for this one.
I'm gonna make an exception. It's just awful. If you guys, European trailers are not made for the U.S. market. They are not made to be pulled behind that's a dually. That's a dually truck right there pulling that thing. It's not made to be pulled on a 70-mile-an-hour interstate with trucks going by you at 80 miles an hour with their air dam pushing you. It doesn't work, right? They're very, and the only thing more dangerous than a Brender up is a one-horse Brender up. I mean, that has a really short width, and I'm sure that thing was doing this before anyway, just awful. Okay, but this is another European trailer, and this is a good example of what I'm talking about. Brad and Caleb talked in the last thing about, what is your ultimate question that you are thinking to yourself before you buy a trailer? Whatever trailer you buy, right? Would I put my beloved horse in that trailer? And I've made myself smart enough to understand what I'm really buying or what I'm really investing in, right? That's really what it comes down to. And, this just happens to be one example. Caleb, what is that floor made out of? Can you tell me?
I'm not really sure, but there's not much of it. So I don't,
And there ain't no crossbars.
no, there's no cross members. I mean, well, there's two, but that's
there's
definitely
two
not
here.
enough.
There's not enough for the weight of a
No.
horse. And what's missing right here?
Must be some type of bracing. There must be some type of magic floor there that they're
Yeah,
using. Some type
apparently
of
so.
space age material, I guess.
So guys, this is the axle off of that trailer. That it ripped off. And I'm hoping that there was two. Maybe that was the axle on the backside. I don't know. But that's one axle that's just been ripped off in this wreck, and there's really not much excuse for that. This is not a train. In trains, you guys know that trains are actually just sitting on the trucks. They don't actually attach them. So when they have a wreck, they just fall off the truck, right? Trucks are the wheels and axles, right? This is not supposed to be that way. I don't know why this came off. And I don't understand why there's no support on this floor. And the horse came through that crappy, Brad was talking about why we want to try to keep the horse in the trailer, because things get, if they get thrown clear, they usually die or they get massive injuries. And somehow anyway. What I'm telling you guys is I have looked very closely at pictures of wrecks for over 30 years, since Google was a thing, right? And we could get these pictures better. I have been looking at these wrecks, and after 30 years of study, it just amazes me the things that people still put their horses in, right? Look very closely at your trailer. There is so much information out there on the internet, how to safely build a trailer, what to look for when you're buying a used trailer. If you're buying a trailer, building a trailer, there's so much information out there. So to me, my answer to this one would be, I'm not going to put my horse anywhere near that trailer. I'm not even going to tie my horse to that trailer, right? because it has many of the sins that we're looking for in problem trailers. And a
I
lot of
feel
people
like
think, go ahead.
I feel like in that trailer, if you use that slide again in the future for a presentation, we should have the Bon Jovi theme song "Living on a Prayer."
That's, there you go.
As soon as you show the slide, it "Living on a Prayer." That's what they were
Yep,
doing.
there you go. Living on a prayer. So what I want to do, we mentioned this just a little bit in the last webinar, and Brad and I talked about it, but on many of your trailers, you will notice that there is a fancy sticker. It has an American flag on it, and it says National Association of Trailer Manufacturers, and I'm probably going to get a nasty letter from them for saying this, but I'm going to tell you guys, they ascribe to the minimum standards. So it's not like, I don't want anybody to think that if you're an NATM member, that they send some engineer out to look at your trailers and make sure you're doing all the right things, right? You just sign off and say, I will ascribe to the minimum standards for this industry, minimum standards, not maximum standards. And then they send you your stickers and you send in your money every year. Am I correct, Brad?
You are correct. The only folks that I've ever in my 30 years of building trailers have come out to our facility and inspect was OSHA.
Yep.
Nobody else.
Yep.
Nobody else.
So there's no crash testing. There's no looking at manufacturers. Now, DOT will check that trailer once you're on the road. Sometimes they will stop. And if you get stopped by a DOT cop, man, that's what usually happens to the commercial drivers, right? They get stopped by the DOT cops, the transportation folks. And they're looking for making sure you ascribe to the minimum standards, right? But I just want you guys to understand that this is not what you think it is. That sticker makes you feel good about yourself, but it is not what you think it is. And I've been complaining about it for a long time. I have never been able to meet an engineer or any of the folks from there that have shown me that they are doing anything to actually increase safety in horse trailers, right?
Actually, I have a couple questions here. If we can take a quick pause, because
Yeah.
there are three similar questions, and you may be getting into it further in. We definitely have info on it that we could provide, but I'm going to say these three together, and I think you can just answer them. Rebecca and Brad both can chime in. Statistics of horse survival for steel versus aluminum trailers. Um, Someone says aluminum trailers versus steel trailers, pros and cons. And then another person says, honestly, do not think there is a safe enough horse trailer out there for me, steel or aluminum. If it gets hit, I worry that I will have injured or dead horses. I guess most people feel this way. So what do
Yeah.
you guys think on that?
I think most people realize that you are really, you're putting your horse into whether it's steel or aluminum, you're putting your horse into something. There's no airbag. There's no, um, none of the things that we take. There's no seat belts. And there's people who have tried doing some of those things, and it actually, because of horses and their behavior, it makes it more stressful for them. In general, if the trailer is a steel trailer or an aluminum trailer or a combination with a steel frame and aluminum on top, if it is manufactured well and the welding is done correctly, the attention to detail has been made, and it has a good manufacturer, then it should stay together. But you're going to see in some of my photos here that there is a lot of things that break apart, and that usually comes down to taking some cheap shortcuts.
That's
Brad?
right. That's right. No, I tend to agree. A well-built aluminum trailer, a well-built steel trailer, both will perform. Just because a piece of 1x2 tubing steel perhaps has more strength than a piece of 1x2 tubing aluminum doesn't necessarily mean that the steel one is stronger than the aluminum, because it all depends on how much of it did you use,
Yep.
right? It's like that, the foul truss, the one that we
The
just looked
Faltras,
at.
yep.
If they had aluminum cross planks at every 4 inches apart underneath there, we would have looked at it and said, wow, that thing's put together really good. It's super strong. But we also look at it and it had like 3 or 4. So they're living on a prayer. So it really does come down a lot to individual manufacturing. And yeah, we'll see from the photos how they
Even
perform.
if you go to Tractor Supply and you go to the trailer hitch thing, take a look at the actual hitches, right? The class 4 hitch. And you'll notice it's tubing, steel tubing, and then the class 5 hitch, and it's solid metal, right?
Mhm.
I don't know about you. I don't, physics was a long time ago for me, but it seems to me like solid metal is probably a lot stronger than tubing metal, right? And that's
Agreed.
really what it comes down to. It comes down to the physics of that. And it's probably going to be price. So there are some things where the increased price is worth it. And when it comes to hitching, absolutely. When it comes to framing, absolutely.
One of the things that we pointed out in the last webinar, I think the trailer industry has done a fantastic or phenomenal job of tricking
Hmm.
buyers into light is better.
Yep.
We need to get an aluminum lightweight so that my beautiful half-ton Ford will tow it. And in the previous webinar, I called hogwash on that and I said, heavier, the better.
Yep.
Like you should be asking the weight, what does this thing weigh? Well, if this brand A weighs 3,500 pounds, brand B, which is the same width and height and length, weighs 4,000 or 4,500 pounds, that's a lot of difference in material and strength, regardless of what it's made of. So when you're looking at weight, that's a direct indicator of how much material is used. It's a direct link to strength and also cost. So oftentimes those lighter weight trailers are less expensive and more attractive, but be aware.
Yep. The same thing, again, back at Tractor Supply or Lowe's, if you just look at balls, right? The 2.5 inch
Mhm.
ball, 2 and 5/16 inch ball, sitting there, you'll have a 2 and 5/16 ball with a 2,000 pound tongue weight and a 12,000 pound tongue weight. And one of them's 19.99 and one of them's 59.99. I don't know. What do you think?
Right.
Obviously something went into the engineering and heavier duty. So this is what Brad's talking about, right? This is what we learned from. There's no crash testing in horse trailers. I am aware of 2 sets of crash testing that's been done. One was me and my second ex-husband. We took a horse trailer out on a Michelin test track and set it go loose at 65 miles an hour 4 times. We couldn't flip it, and it was a big old steel trailer, and we weren't able to destroy it either because it's perfectly flat. There's no ditches, there's no obstacles, and it just came to a halt in the grass. And the other one was back in the 70s over in New Zealand. There was some trailer testing that was done on bulkheads and things like that by um, Holmes Trailer back in the 70s. Other than that, there's no crash testing. This is the crash testing, right? For 30 years, I've been looking at these pictures, right? How does this happen? This trailer, this must have been a catastrophic wreck because this trailer came forward. But if you look really hard, guess what? That is the hitch. It bent the hitch upward. The chains are still attached. Technically the trailer's still attached to the ball, it looks like, on the hitch. So actually I would consider that successful. It kept it together, right? There may have been some failures, or maybe that was a really massive impact, but it technically is still together. It didn't go down the street by itself. This one, that looks like, the nose broke off that gooseneck. That's pretty catastrophic injury, right? And that doesn't happen too often. But what was going on behind this, right? And then this one, that looks like a Reese hitch. That's a manufactured hitch. God only knows how old it is. The sticker's actually held on pretty good, but it looks to me like there's been something that's been going on at this level. That's the ball that was through the hitch and it broke off. Now, how often does that happen? I don't know. Was there a lot of freeze thaw that went on with this? What's going on here? But I will say that this person had their chains attached correctly, and there you go. I don't know. I bet you
Yeah,
that was a butthole tightening experience. Sorry guys, but that's what I would do. I would be like, whoo,
clenching the butt cheeks for sure.
that's right.
Someone said, should the hitch on the truck be replaced periodically? I think that's a valid question.
Absolutely. Manufacturers, if you read through the fine print, they usually say 10 years on the ball and the hitch. I would say 10 years is a good thing. If you haul every weekend, maybe more often. If there's any evidence of, like look at this ball in this picture. If you look at this ball and there was scratches on it, there looks like there's some scratches right there. That's probably from this incident, right? They had that's a pretty catastrophic wreck. But look at the quality of your ball. What's interesting is I can tell that they had this ball lubricated. I'm not sure the top of it was well lubricated, but the outside of it was lubricated. It looks like a heavy duty ball. That's probably a 7 to 12,000 pound tongue weight ball. It ain't cheap. That's a 2 and 5/16 inch ball, right? But it seems to have survived something. What's funny is, look at this. If you look at these chains, that's the S hook. What a cheap freaking crappy thing to attach on a obviously living quarters gooseneck trailer. The pin it bent the pin, and then it broke that other chain that was on that cable. So that's what we're looking at, right? I can never get these photos, and I know Brad can't either, right? I don't need the picture of the whole incident. Well, that's nice. But I need, what did the hitch look like? What did the ball look like? What did the chains look like? Was the electrical still attached? If you guys have got these things, send them to me. That's my email. I collect this stuff because I do these kinds of educational things, but also because we're constantly learning in the industry on what is good and what is bad, what works and what doesn't work, right? I've been collecting this stuff with US Rider for many, many years. And they send me rec investigations every once in a while. If you got them, send them.
I always
So,
say your load is only as safe as the weakest link.
yes, and
So
that
if
was a
you,
weakest link.
yeah,
This is a weakest
you're
link.
hitched.
Look at this one,
Hmm.
right? This is my proof that if you hitch it right, it will stay hitched. Although this was probably a butt cheek tightening experience. I don't know what happened here. This looks like some kind of structural failure of the metal in this steel trailer in the nose, but technically it's still hitched. The chains were crossed correctly. Looks like everything sort of stuck together. That probably was a little bit scary when that nose hit the thing. Um, this is my proof. You get hit by a train. Look, this train dragged this truck and trailer down the track far enough that it grabbed the gravel into the wheel wells here. It's still hitched, folks. If you do it right, it's still hitched. Now, I didn't say that it was still going to be attached to the truck. I do have pictures of horse trailers been hit by trains and other catastrophic situations where the ball and the plate out of the back of the truck got removed with the trailer. But technically, the ball was still in the coupler, which means it was technically still hitched. I didn't say it was attached to the truck anymore, right? And then look at this one, okay? Still hitched. That's pretty catastrophic. You managed to flip your trailer, right? And it's still hitched, 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 hitched. So if you hitch it right, it's still hitched. This is the best one. It's technically an RV. It's not a horse trailer. I could not find in my files one with one right over the bridge. But the weight of that truck is being held by the hitch on that RV, right? Now you can see by this point what has happened is this trailer driver realized what was going on. He pulled up, he attached some chains to this truck to help hold it just so they could get the people out, right? And that's the people trying to crawl out the back window, right? Terrifying, right?
Wow.
But it's proof that if you do it right and hitch it right and you have the right equipment, it will stay hitched, even in catastrophic conditions. So what Brad was talking about in that last one, sometimes trailers become unhitched magically. No, they don't come unhitched magically. There's some kind of maintenance problem. You didn't attach the pin, the chains weren't attached, all those things, or it broke because there was some catastrophic failure of the metal, right? But generally, it comes down to people did it. It's not just, some magical thing that happened as you were driving down the road. So do the prevention, do the preparation, all those things add up. That's my husband, sweet, sweet man, doing the last tire checks before I pull out with that's a mannequin, folks. That's not an actual dead horse. That's going out for a training, and he's helping me make sure I do the preventative maintenance and checks all around the vehicle before I go, right? Most important part.
I have some questions from just following up on the hitch couple.
Yeah.
A couple of folks ask, is lubricating the ball hitch a good or bad thing? Someone said I was told
Absolutely
no.
needs to be done.
Yeah.
Lubrication, motion is lotion, all those kind of things. Absolutely. I sometimes will hear people drive by at a show or something, and I can hear it going, and I'll walk up to them and say, hey, you really ought to lubricate that ball. And they're like, I've never done that before. And I'm like, I can tell. And at that point, if it's been that long, you probably need to replace your ball. If you take the easiest way to look at your hitch is to turn your camera upside down in selfie mode and turn on the light, right? And take a picture, because it's underneath. Take a picture with your flash underneath your hitch and get a good picture. You can actually look at that hitch and see if there's scrape marks or any evidence of corrosion and wear in your coupler. And then, of course, you can look at the ball up close. And if there's any corrosion, any scratches, any of those kind of things, you should probably replace that ball.
What are your thoughts on the WaySafe hitches?
I'm not an expert. I don't have enough data on those. I've seen there's several different apps and products on those kind of things. I don't have a professional opinion on that.
Okay.
What
To
type of
me,
hitch? What
if
type
it
of hitch?
increases the
WaySafe.
safety, I like it.
WaySafe.
Mhm.
WaySafe.
Yeah.
I think the WaySafe is the one where it actually has the built-in
Yes.
Okay.
scale,
Yeah, I've
you know?
seen those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One
I
last
don't
question
know
on that.
enough to be able to answer that
Yeah.
for professionally, but to me, if it's something you use and you're staying within the limitations, I would say
Mhm.
that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. And then lubrication, is there any particular recommendation for that? Or just a general?
Manufacturer's instructions, that's always the thing from the fire service we always say is go by the manufacturer instructions, but you can never find the manufacturer instructions. Victor McPherson is one of my colleagues, and he has been a diesel mechanic for 40 years, or maybe it's 50 at this point. And he always says use a grease that is WD-40 is not a grease, by the way, folks. It's not WD-40. That's a waste of your time. Get a white grease or a grease that your trailer shop recommends. These days, there's even for your ball, there's these ladies, I know nobody likes to get grease on your hands. So you probably ought to have some medical gloves in your truck. That's the easiest way. And then you get your nice white grease and you just reach in, grab a little, put it on the ball, and then take your glove off and toss it, right? That's the way you keep clean, because otherwise that grease will be with you for the next 12 days.
Lithium grease.
That's it. Yes, the lithium grease. Whatever the manufacturer's instructions are. And honestly, I don't care if it sprays. I don't care if it's in a tub. If you're going to use it, right? That's the thing, because having it and using it are two different things. Anyway, safety attitudes. Here we are talking about those things. Who gets in a horse trailer and goes in, I don't know what those are, Crocs or flip-flops or something, tennis shoes? Folks, if you're loading up to go down the road, your shoes alone tell me that you thought you weren't going to have a problem, right? Firefighters are all showing up in boots. This guy's got on boots. I don't know what these are, right? And you're just taking a chance on hurting yourself too. But it tells me that you were not thinking that you would ever have a problem, right? So there's a couple of ways that we can think about protecting ourselves as we're going down the road. Have a dash cam, because if you have a wreck, at this point, we're just worried about the horses, right? But I promise you, after the wreck, you're going to be worried about whose fault was it and who did what and whose problem was it, right? That wreck that I was in, the one wreck that I've been in where I was a driver, I had a dash cam. And when I sent that to the insurance company, they were like, "Ooh, yeah, you were not at fault. It's her." Thank goodness, right? If I hadn't had that, then it would have been me. See, he said, she said, whatever the cop said, right? Do you have a camera in the trailer so that you know what's going on in the trailer? That's going to be really important when it comes to having a fire in the back, right? And then hands-free phone devices. We were talking about texting and all the things, right? Hands-free. In Georgia, we're a hands-free state. You can actually get a ticket for having that phone in your hand. You want to reduce the distractions, turn off all the notifications so it's not going bing, bing, bing. Your human brain can't help it. The reason they have those notifications is to try to get you to look, right? Be smarter than the phone, right? Do you wear a seatbelt at all times? Do you prioritize your sleep and health? The number, and Brad looks at these things too, the number of these things that happen at 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. They're trying to make it home after the rodeo or the show or the event or whatever they were doing, and they're just trying to make it home. And they didn't prioritize sleep and health. Brad talked about that as a pilot command and how many people die in planes. They die in trucks and trailers too. Get that, make the horses stand in the trailer for the night. Get that hotel room, get your 4 or 5 hours of sleep, whatever you got to have. Prioritize your sleep and health. Tell your boss you're going to be late. Sorry, I was at the rodeo this weekend with my kid. I'm not going to get my kid killed, me killed, and my horses killed trying to get home so I can be at work, right? Uh, I know this is product placement. This is Ranch Cam. That's what I use. It's not that I'm promoting a particular product. That's what I use. That's what Tori and Justin McLeod, some of my colleagues, spent. They do this a lot. They use them, and I love it. And I'm going to show you guys why you want a Ranch Cam. This is loading a horse in a trailer in the dark. Goes to show even husbands can learn to do this. There you go. Whether the horses are biting each other, whether the horses are doing something dumb, if there's smoke, if there's flames, whatever. You can see it in the trailer real time as you're driving down the road. That to me is a good investment. A camera in your trailer, there's cheaper versions. I don't care what you get. Put a camera in your trailer so you know what's going on, right? And in a wreck, you'll be able to see what's going on back there without opening the door or the windows, hopefully, right? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. I put it together for all y'all. Take a picture of it. Send it to your friends. I actually put it up on Facebook this morning. I was sharing it, trying to promote this webinar. Those are the kind of things that you ought to have in your truck and trailer before you leave. And I don't care if it's 5 miles down to your friend's house, or you're going 150 miles, or you're going 5,000 miles. You should have those kinds of things to be able to deal with a situation at the other end. And there's lots of uses for all those things. And then this stuff is really important. That's the paperwork that nobody ever wants to do, right? The power of attorney, your instructions. If you get hurt or you are on the way to the hospital and your horses, God forbid, are in the back of that trailer, who does what with them? Who owns them? And if they're injured and they have to be put down, who can, right? That's the real thing. And I have a whole nother webinar series just on that one thing, power of attorney and instructions for contact, put it in an obvious place so that a first responder can find it in your truck. They can help make those decisions. They can give it to the veterinarian, say, hey, this is their information, insurance information, all those things, forms and ID, and then of course, obviously a vet kit and a human first aid kit. Those things are important. This just happened this month, right? Truck and trailer, father and son driving down the road, and for whatever reason, on a perfectly clear day, they slammed into the back of a parked semi on the side of the road. Killed both of them, got one of their horses killed. The other ones were extricated, but they were in critical condition. You can imagine when he probably hit it at full speed. And bad enough that he caught the semi on fire. So now you've shut down the interstate for hours and all the things. So these kinds of things make you think, if I'm going to get help, how's the help going to get there? Like, how does the vet get there? Because they have to drive in that traffic too. Can they get an escort from the police? The police are going to get there. The fire department's probably going to get there. But how are all the other people going to help? Like, if you extricate these horses out of the trailer, what are they going to do? You're not going to load them back in that trailer. That trailer is trashed, right? Just thinking about the logistics of how you approach something like this, not even thinking about the fact that you've got 2 dead bodies, right? So from the perspective of the fire department, it's not hard because they can get there with their blinky lights. But anybody else that comes on that scene can't get there. That's a sobering thing to think through, folks. That's the reality of these kinds of wrecks, and that's why I'm talking about it, because I want you guys to think about it, right? So,
quick question.
Yeah.
And you may touch on this, but are veterinarians typically called by emergency services when horses are involved or no?
Totally depends on the jurisdiction. So in some jurisdictions, they've made that pre-coordination. In some jurisdictions, that's not true. In some jurisdictions, the telecommunicator at the 911 dispatch is going to be looking through her or his, Rolodex. I know that's an old word, but through their, Googling for a local veterinarian. If you have a veterinarian that's local, you obviously would want to get that person there, but it depends on whether you have a team. There's no standardization anywhere. So you as a horse owner in your area might want to reach out to your veterinarians and to your emergency manager in your county and say, hey, if we had this happen on the interstate that goes through our county, What would you guys do? Who are you going to call? Because I'm going to tell you, I don't blame the veterinarians. There's some veterinarians that say, hey, I don't work on somebody else's horses. Sorry, you're not my client. I'm not going to stop my day and go work on your horses just because you had a wreck. Hate it. And I don't blame them because guess what? They're probably not going to get paid. And you're probably going to treat them like crap because you're going to be mad, you're going to be upset, you're going to be frustrated, embarrassed, and all the things, right? And then, in the fire department, that happens all the time. People scream at us, and then the next day they bring cookies to the fire department because they realized that they were buttheads on scene. Anyway, okay, so let's go to a scene, right? This is a pretty amazing scene right here, right? I can't believe the people didn't get killed. They had a couple of horses that got killed. They got hit by a drowsy driver that came into their lane, and they forced them off the truck and off the road, and took a heck of a ride right there, right? Actually, I'm impressed by that trailer. I mean, the frame actually on this side looks like it did pretty good considering the situation. But who do you call? First call 911. It takes time. The logistics of these things is it takes time for people to get there. And especially if this is in Nevada or somewhere, in the middle of nowhere, it's going to take them minutes to almost an hour to get there, even from the emergency folks, right? So check your people, then you can check your horses, preferably through the camera, and then you can take your pictures and put it on Facebook. I don't know what it is with people. I have got so many pictures of incidents right after it happened, and I'm like, did you actually stop to put it on Facebook? Apparently they did. Okay, so the next call is to the veterinarian because having the fire department there is important, but having the veterinarian there to make decisions with you as the owner as to, are we going to treat it? Are we going to do triage it, treat it, and are we going to euthanize it? Or what are we going to do, right? You really need to have that veterinarian there. And veterinarians will tell you it's often an hour or two for them to get to that location if they agree to come, because they don't have blinky lights. They can't do 90 on the 55. They can't do those things. They have to drive at the speed of traffic. And it's their safety too, right? Your emergency is not their emergency. So you're going to need a veterinarian. So I often tell people when you're driving across country, you might want to just look up some of the veterinarians that are on your route, because if something happened, your horse colics even, God forbid you have a wreck, right? Oh, wait, what is this? That's another one of those trailers. They have, what kind of floor is that, Caleb? That looks like plywood to me.
It does to me as well. Not, it looks like rotten plywood, actually.
Yep. Horse went through it. All the things. Crappy
A trailer
manufacturer.
that shall not be named.
Yes, a trailer that shall not be named. Just awful.
Question, this is actually a question for me. These photos, are these, and I don't know if you know the context or not, but are they were they accidents or
some
were
of
these
these are
just
accidents in
yeah.
the trailer. So what happens is often is you have a minor accident or you slam on brakes. That's what happened with this one. You slam on brakes because you have to protect yourself, right? And the horse doesn't have airbags or anything. He hits the floor. Many times in trailer wrecks, they're going to hit the floor. When they do, they scramble to try to get up. When they do, they kick. And as they're struggling to try to get up, and that's what happened here. The horse kicked while he was down. You can see there's no other way to explain that injury, right? He kicked while he was down. Crappy. I don't know. That looks like a weld. I don't know what was that. Looks like, I don't know. But kick through there, right? You have to have tools to be able to get that. They're leveraging this. The fire department is leveraging with this. And there's one of my tools that I said you might want to have in your trailer right there. Sawzall. That happens to be a DeWalt. I don't care what brand it is, as long as it's got a charged battery and you can cut through some of the things, cut your horse out of things. Have it in the trailer. Maybe you don't use it, but you can give it to the firefighters, right? This one, I don't know what the situation was with this one. This one was just driving down the road, not even a wreck. Prevention. But you're going to need a fire department, and you're going to need, even this one, when you're driving down the road and the horse goes through the floor, you're going to need the fire department, because what happens is their legs end up under the trailer and the horse can't get back up. So now you stop traffic and your horse is through it. So you're going to need the fire department. You're probably going to need a veterinarian either to euthanize it or to fully sedate it or anesthetize it so that you can make an effort to try to get the horse out, right? It's just, you got to have those two people. So you got to call 911 first, get them on the way, and then call a veterinarian. And don't be fiddling through Google to try to find a veterinarian. And who's going to show up, right? The people that show up should be the police officers, the fire department, probably going to need a tow truck because that trailer ain't going nowhere, right? Somebody's going to need a tow truck, and the police may call for the tow truck. Department of Transportation may show up. If you've got horses, you may end up having Department of Transportation may show up, and then you need a vet and another trailer, right? So the logistics of this are thinking through, oh my God, now I need another trailer. My horses are fine, thank goodness. We got them out of the trailer, but now what, right? How are you going to get a trailer there? Who do you know, right? Maybe the 911 dispatch knows somebody. Maybe the veterinarian knows somebody that's local that can show up, hitch up, and bring their trailer. And I'll tell you, I've had people that have been picked up by somebody else and said, Rebecca, the trailer that showed up to pick up my horses was worse than my trailer was. I don't know how you solved that. Anyway, so some of the challenges, again, I could talk probably for an hour just on this slide here, but thinking about having a veterinarian that you know, preferably, or that knows the horse. Even if I was in, Montana and I was riding my horse and I had a problem with a trailer wreck, my vet is in Georgia. I would still call her. I would still give her a photo and a short video of the scene and ask her, does she know somebody in Montana? AAEP actually has a list of veterinarians across the country. If you go to American Association of Equine Practitioners website for owners, they've got a list of veterinarians and where they are. So that would be useful too. And then of course, can you provide a photo or a short video of the vet that's trying to come and it's going to be an hour away, but they're coming? Can you give them photos and a short video? Because nothing explains the situation better than a photo and a short video, right? And then of course, making sure they get there. And how are they going to get there? Do they need escort from a police officer to be able to get there, to get around the traffic, right? Or go down the interstate the wrong way or something. And then of course, after that vet shows up, if they're mobile, where are we taking it? Are we taking it to their clinic? Are we taking it to their friend's clinic? Are we taking it to a barn that's nearby so that the vet can do definitive care afterwards? I'm going to tell you, after you go through a wreck, everybody says, oh, I feel fine. And then 2 days later, they feel awful. The horse is the same way. Just because he stands up and walks out of the trailer doesn't mean he feels great. And I'm going to show you a video here in a little bit about what horses their bodies look like when that happens, right? And then, of course, working with the emergency responders. We're going to talk a lot about that because that comes down to attitude. And I'm just going to tell you, if you're one of those, oh my God, what are you going to do? As an emergency responder, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put you in the nice police officer's vehicle in the back because I don't need you on my scene. You got to be able to get a hold of yourself. And I always tell people, we can cry and we can pee later. But right now, we got to focus. We got to make decisions. We got to think through. Don't panic, all those things. Easy to say, but when it's your horses, it's a whole different thing than when it's somebody else's horses, right?
Hey, Rebecca, what does VCPR stand for?
That is a veterinary client-patient relationship. You have one with your veterinarian if your pet or your horse has seen your veterinarian within the last year. If it is more than 365 days, you no longer have a VCPR. That is a legal relationship with your veterinarian for the care of your animal. Y'all need to look it up because the veterinarians are being very smart about how they handle that these days. Ask me how I know. People call me and they say, I give my own shots to my horses and I don't really have a veterinarian and I've been here for a couple of years and now my horse is down and colicking and I need a vet. And I'm like, good luck. You can take it to the university, but a vet's probably not going to come help because they've got their own clients. You're asking them to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and they don't even know who you are. Veterinary client-patient relationship, very important. And if you have one with a veterinarian, you are more chances of being able to get another veterinarian that's in Montana while your vet's in Georgia. If you say, hey, this is my veterinarian in Georgia, can you talk to them? They're going to say, oh, you already have a VCPR. Okay, I can talk to your veterinarian. We can make choices. We can make decisions better, right? Need to have a vet. I have two. for my horses, because one's out of town once in a while, or they're allowed to take vacation, all the things. And then, of course, having your head together so you can work with your veterinarian on the primary triage and treatment on the scene. Let the fire rescue folks do their extrication, right? They have the expertise. They have the tools. They have the equipment. They might not have ever done a trailer wreck before and extricated a horse, but I promise you they've done a zillion cars. And it's basically the same thing other than, the horse that can come flying out of there and kick you in the head. But otherwise, the basics are similar, right? And they know how to do the side of the road safety. They know how to look out for traffic. They know how to use lighting on the scene and make themselves safer. So let them do their job. You don't need to tell them how to do their job. And then start the coordination early for getting a wrecker. If they're not going to do that, maybe you have a friend that can bring a trailer. Who's getting the horses? Where are they going? Definitive treatment, all those things. But you got to be patient because it takes time for other people to get to the scene unless you're really lucky. I responded accidentally to an incident on the interstate in 75, and back in 2012 there was a 13-horse trailer rolled over, and I was going to the airport, and I realized what it was, and I pulled over on the side of the scene, got out, tried to help with the situation. They were so lucky. There was a couple of people in traffic who had horses and horse trailers. They realized what was going on. They called friends. They had horse trailers pulling up. There was a veterinarian around the corner about 3 miles away. They called her. She showed up, and they were doing things to help the horses within about 15 minutes of the wreck, which is amazing on the interstate. And I think they had the whole thing cleaned up in about 45 minutes. So that wasn't me. I just showed up in the middle of it, and I was watching, and I was like, man, you guys, this is the slickest scene I've ever seen, just because you had some horse people that had resources and were able to get them to that scene.
I have
Anyway.
some follow-ups here real quick.
Yep.
So somebody, sorry, Lori G, this was asked quite a bit ago. It just didn't fit in, but she said a team member in my group pulled over with a 6-horse load to change tire, and the trailer tipped over on the shoulder of the road and killed one horse. What are recommendations for pulling over and the trailer not tipping over? And I had someone, it was actually, she said again, if the shoulder's angled or soft, you have to pull over. Is there fear of the trailer tipping over? Is it best to wait for 911? Do you need to have a police escort to drive to a flatter service? How far can you drive slowly with a single flat?
Absolutely. Listen, I would be playing blonde. I got a blonde hair here somewhere. I would be playing blonde and saying, 911, I need help. I have horses on this trailer. I'm on the side of the road. I need to limp it to safety. I need an escort, or whatever you need, right? That's what they do, right? And they so much, as a firefighter, I'll just tell you, I so much would prefer to show up and help you and then realize you don't need the help and we go home than I would to not show up and then you get hit by another person on the side of the road, or something else happens, or the trailer flips over. And we could have just solved that by having somebody come out and give you an escort and limp you up the road a little bit or to the end of the guardrail. When I look at guardrails on the side of the interstate, it's terrifying to me, because if I had to pull over there, that's not enough room for my big 108 wide trailer, right? I'd be sticking into the lane, and that's terrifying. So limp it to the end of the thing, try to find a spot, or get that escort so that you're safer, right? Or the only other thing you can do if you're on a 2-lane road is you can block the lane with your truck and trailer. And I have actually done that. I had many years ago, I was going up a really steep thing, and I had a transmission problem. And when I realized what was going on, I said, well, there's no other way to do this than stop the traffic. So I literally backed it up and let it block traffic on that entire lane. And then chalked it, did all the things on the side of the road till the cops showed up, because I called 911. He got there and he's like, what are you doing? You're blocking their lanes. I said, sir, I didn't know what else to do to slow people down because it was too damn dangerous on this curve. He said, that was pretty smart. And I said, hey, it's my birthday. I got cake in the car. You want a piece of cake? He said, sure.
Nice.
Anyway, that was many years ago.
Well, so one question would be, is there going to ever be a time where you'd recommend folks to try to get the horse out, or are you
No.
always going to say wait?
If it's on a roadway, absolutely not, unless it's fire and smoke. If it's smoke and fire, then you need to get the horses out. But that's a whole nother thing, right? Can you imagine trying to do that on the side of the interstate? I got some pictures at the end of this presentation about that. That is a huge challenge. Some people can't even get the horses in the trailer, much less get them out.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're to the point of we got to deal with what we got, right? So try not to go in the trailer. Try not to be emotional. You got to panic, breathe, try not to panic. Build that team on scene. Who is with you? Is it your kid? Is it your grandma? Is it your friend? Who does what? Hey, I need you to call 911 and give them the thing, right? Give them a job. I need you to go 100 yards down the thing here and put out a couple of cones so that people know we're here. I need you, there's a house right there that has horses, go knock on those people's door, give them a job that makes relevant to the situation. You might have the resources right there, right? And then, of course, once you get on the phone with a veterinarian, discuss the issues of what you can see. I prefer that people don't go into trailers at all. If you open that door or you open that window, guess what? Sometimes, and there's good videos out there on the internet of horses, they open or cattle too. You open that and they try to come out over you. Because to them, they're in a nice dark hole and they're not really doing anything. As soon as you open it up, they're like, I'm leaving. I've had enough of this, right? So be very careful on your assessment. And then, of course, making good decisions for the horse's welfare. Honestly, once the trailer wreck stops, most of the time the horses will stand up. If they can stand, they will stand. At that point, they're just relaxed. And I have told people, do you have some good alfalfa hay? While you're waiting for the rest of the thing, like this situation, if that horse is standing, give him some alfalfa hay. Don't take him off the trailer. Let's wait for help, more people to make good decisions, and give him some alfalfa hay. And if he's eating alfalfa hay, guess what? His heart rate drops, his panic level drops, all those things. It's good for everybody. Depends on the situation. So people say, why do you need the fire department besides just the traffic? Well, sometimes, there you go, right? In this case, the horse got thrown into the area between the horse compartment and the living quarters in the front. And I don't know who makes this kind of trailer, but this is an old picture, but still from 2020. But the horse ended up there, and now we got to have the veterinarian to give it some anesthesia so that we can drag it out of there. Obviously, doing a backwards drag, right? I said I wasn't going to talk about methods, but this would be a backwards drag situation out of this situation. But we need to open some more space because there's so much of the horse in there, right? You're going to have the fire department. They have the tools. Now, that trailer ain't never going to look like it did before after the fire department gets done with it, right? But they don't care. They already know that it's trashed, right? At this point, we've been in a wreck. You're probably going to get the insurance value for it anyway. So they're going to trash it to get your animal out. That's just the way it is. So you just got to swallow and say, hey, that's the way it is. Questions?
Well, it's pertinent to fire department. Someone asked earlier, is a fire extinguisher in the truck or trailer necessary, or
Yes.
water extinguisher, chemical extinguisher? What's
Good. I've got a slide for that. We'll talk about that when we get to the fires. Yep, absolutely. Yes, they're thinking ahead. Okay, so, that's what the fire department does. They do all the cutting. Now, I don't prefer that you open it like this. They took the roof off, which is okay, but they should have cut it as a door, not as a ramp, because no horse likes to walk on metal, right? And we all know what it's going to do. As soon as the horse steps on it, he's probably going to jump. Anyway, doing the best they can. So we teach a lot of firefighters, we teach a lot of veterinarians about how to do technical large animal emergency rescue and the approaches that they should be taken for that. That's not this class. So what should fire rescue be doing? They should be doing their incident command and control. And I know as civilians, we don't like somebody else to be in charge, but I'm going to tell you, if you have your wreck on a public roadway, you ain't in charge. When the fire department gets there, they're in charge. And if sometimes it depends on the jurisdiction, the police department's there and they're in charge. But you let them argue over who's in charge, right? You work together with the fire department, you work together with the police officers to make good decisions based on the welfare of your animals and all the things, right? They're going to think about traffic safety. They have the tools, they have the lighting. I mean, look at this scene. They have headlamps, they have portable lamps, they have lights on sticks, they have lights like arena football lights, right? They can light up that scene so that people aren't suffering in the dark. And why does the fire department do that? Because they know it's a safety thing. If you can't see, you're going to trip over things, right? Well, guess what? Horses the same way. If they can't see, they're going to trip over it too, right? They have the extrication equipment and they have the access to resources. They can reach around on their radio and ask dispatch for, I need a tow truck. Hey, I need whatever, right? Hey, I'm looking for a veterinarian. Can you find me a veterinarian? Let her do it. She's sitting in an office with a, computer and radios and all the resources instead of sitting out there suffering in the dark, right? So let the fire rescue folks do their job. And they're used to dealing with these kinds of things on the side of the road. And they know it's all about. If you look at the statistics for the number of firefighters and the number of tow truck operators that get killed, in North America, it's something like once every 6 days, a tow truck operator gets killed. It is a really, really dangerous job, guys, because of cell phones and doofuses on the road not paying attention, right? It's all about the traffic danger, so take it seriously. That's why there's cones, that's why there's flashy lights, there's why they're reflective and all. Oh, wait, reflective? That is not reflective. Folks, these manufacturers, they are taking cheap. That is about $10 worth of reflective right there, and they didn't use the 3M diamond plate reflective that I like. That's cheap crap right there. It's going to peel off of there in no time, and there's none of it on the side of the trailer, right? This is reflective, and I really don't care how you put it on there, right? It's reflective, and if you pull up behind that, you can see that, right? And why are we doing that? Because maybe it'll help prevent this, right? This one's in the fog. This one, I can't explain that one. That's on a perfectly beautiful day, right? But this is what we're trying to prevent. And somebody asked about frames and all those things, and Brad spent a lot of time talking about steel frames on that last thing. This right here is crap manufacture. That wreck happened about 5 to 10 miles an hour, slammed into the back of that trailer. There is no excuse for that. That bulkhead just completely failed, right? This one obviously was a lot faster. Again, the entire back end of that trailer failed. That's what you're looking for. That or put your horses up in the first or second stall. I mean, pictures don't lie. All right, so let's go back to our situations. Buy some reflective tape. Chaotic scene, you're going to have a lot of dangers. Most of the dangers come from traffic. People always worry about the horse behavior, and I go, yeah, the horse, yeah, but the traffic is what really gets people. And you got to work as a team. How are we going to get people there? This is very chaotic scene, right? There's the trailer. Caleb, can you explain to me, look how big that trailer is. That is longer than that pickup truck, which means it's more than 16 feet, probably more like 20 feet. Is that not a tag-along hitch for a trailer that big?
That is a bumper pull. Certainly
What?
is.
Why do people make trailers that big still on a, I just don't understand.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
mean, we have folks that request, we could do a
I
3
know.
horse, even 4 horse. We always, when you're getting into that 3 horse, gooseneck is usually going to be the way to go. If you have an
Yes.
adequately rated tow vehicle, you could pull it and still be okay, but it does begin to become excessively long for a bumper pull for sure.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And that's what happened here, right? Just lost control, single vehicle wreck, which means you lost control, right? So who's in charge? Fire department shows up, police shows up. What's our plan? We're working together. If you are a sane, non-panicking person, you will be part of the solution and coming up with the plan, or you're going to be sitting in somebody's police car, one or the other. And what happens next? Have we thought through, has the vet gotten there yet? Are we making decisions as the animals come out? Do we, how bad are the injuries? If the injuries are bad enough, do we treat them here, or do we just load them on that second trailer, get them to definitive treatment that's not standing on the side of the interstate, which is my preference, and get them to definitive treatment at that other end, right? What happens next? Work the plan. Once you make the plan, you work the plan. You're working together with your responders to do whatever you're doing. Make sure you get good photos for social media. I'm trying to make it funny, guys, because otherwise I cry, because this is just awful, right? But that's a great photo. Let's go to another one. another case report, right? I was laughing at this one. Single vehicle wreck, lost control. Again, this one's a gooseneck. Probably did the same thing Caleb was talking about with the other one. Just went a little bit too far off the edge, and then there you go. And at some point, the physics of that trailer will tell your truck what to do, right?
What do they got
Anyway,
there propping that door up with, you reckon?
that is actually, I was laughing. They're propping up the door because, guys, when it goes on the roof, you've got two obstacles. One is the door here, which you need to either tie up or prop up. And the second one is this door. And that is a problem because that is not a ramp, right? The horse should not walk out of that trailer on that as a ramp. It's not appropriate. Take it off at the hinge, whatever you got to do so you can get access in there. And honestly, I would take this one off at the hinge too. The trailer's probably trashed. Who cares that we saved the back doors, right? And all that has to happen here is somebody backs up and bumps into this, and then that door is going to come down and hit somebody in the head, which is why helmets are on my list. If you're going to a trailer wreck, you need to have a helmet on. I don't know where these people's helmets are. Anyway, chaotic scene, right? What's the plan? We're working the plan. This guy appears to have a halter lead rope. They just made a hole here so that this guy can hold on to the horse while they're trying to make access into the back. You notice they tied off that door, right? There's the door. When the police officers got there, they cranked it open. But guess what the fire department did? They said, hey guys, that's not really safe. They tied it up. Yay, right? And they've got on helmets. Yay. And then they said, heck with it. We're not even going to use the back. We're just going to open up the roof because the roof is always the easiest way to get into those trailers in a lot of cases, especially since that looks like, let's see, that looks like a fixed wall right there. Yep, rear tack with a fixed. Wait, that's what you guys worked on with your safe tack, right? So you can get it open. Anyway, so that's what we mean. That is a solid thing here, and it's got the little tack thing here. It makes a 3-foot obstacle to try to get to the horses. The firefighters said, heck with it. We're just going to open up the roof. That's the easiest way to work the plan, and I absolutely agree for doing those things. Now, I don't know why I've got people in there. Anybody with a cowboy hat wants to crawl in the trailer, there you go. Put a helmet on them. Anyway, so the big thing here is you got to think about your horses. They don't have seat belts. They don't have airbags. You're going to have injuries. If your horses have been in a wreck, they need to see a vet, folks. I don't know how else to tell you. So many people take them home, and then 3 days later, they've got all kinds of problems. And I go, well, of course they did, because that's what happens to people too. They say, oh, I'm fine. And then 3 days later, they've got a crink in their neck, right? So veterinary care is crucial after a wreck. These are the kinds of things that happen. I am a big fan of lower leg protection because of all these things, right? Lower leg protection. I don't care what you use. You can quilted wraps, you can Velcro wraps, whatever you do, quilted, put it on there. Just put it on those lower legs, those precious lower legs. So,
hey, I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
And you may be getting into it here, but a few people have asked about tying or not tying a horse in transit. And it looks like you may be getting into a little bit on this slide.
Yes, totally depends on the configuration. So that's a really long, there's a really long answer to that, but it really comes down to configuration. I have a living quarters trailer. I have a stallion divider. I put the horse that tries to eat or kick everybody else on front of the stallion divider, and then I take her lead rope off. She can eat from the floor, all those things, but you can't hurt anybody. Everybody else gets along great, so they don't have to have stallion dividers. They can go in the slant between. They can put their heads down. They can clear their respiratory. The vets would prefer that you be able to do that. If you have to tie your horses, my 2-horse trailer, they have to be tied, or else they could possibly turn around and try to turn around in the straight load trailer. So they have to be tied. Totally depends on the configuration, and it also depends on attitude. If your horse is going to reach across that divider and bite the horse in front of him, you probably should have him tied, because if he goes to bite that horse and that horse panics, you're going to end up having a trailer wreck simply because the horses are going to panic in that trailer, and I don't blame them. Or you're going to have nasty injuries. All depends on your training, your configuration of your trailer, and how good they are at traveling. And knowing your horses. Okay, so these are some of the things from a horse person perspective that you should be thinking about since you don't have seat belts and airbags for your horses. I really like lower leg protection, and I know a lot of people are like, but Rebecca, the research these days shows that you shouldn't be putting things on the tendons because it makes them hot. Yes, when you're riding, jumping, and running them, that is true, but not when they're standing in a horse trailer for hours and they have the potential for having an injury, right? Talk to your vet if you don't trust me. I like having a halter on. If you're going to have a lead tied, then then that you do what you do. I still like to have something at the top that will break, so that if you're in a catastrophic wreck, the horse can get himself loose. He's not tied to the trailer. Most of those people don't realize the trailer ties and the halters are 4,000-pound webbing, or if you're using rope halters, they're 4,000-pound rope, and you need something in the system that will break, preferably up at the trailer, the attachment to the trailer. So use hay string, use something, a ping, something to allow your horse to get up and stand on his own. Minimize the entrapments. So a lot of people will put saddles and crap in the first trailer portion of their trailer. Don't do that. It should be horses in the trailer compartment, just horses. And maybe their hay nets and things like that, or hay on the floor, but not saddles and buckets and all those other things. When those things roll underneath horses, people's horses panic. And then, of course, if you have a wreck, it makes it more complicated. Minimize the sharp edges and pointy things. It's amazing how many trailers I walk into, and they have holes about this big in the gates, in the dividers, things like that. That's a perfect place for a hoof. It's a trap, right? So minimize those kind of things. The pointy edges, they should be rounded. The welds should be good. The metal should not be working loose. And then, of course, some padding in there too, and obstacles. I like to maximize egress. We were talking in that last one about how much I like having an extra door or a ramp and door in the front of trailers. It increases the chances of being able to get things out. And you getting into the trailer in a wreck. And then, of course, carrying the extra tools for extrication if you had to. If it made the difference, wouldn't it be worth having that Sawzall so that you could cut that, piece of metal that's holding your horse's foot or whatever, right? So people don't believe me until you walk through a trailer that this doesn't have any horses in it, right? It just had horses in it. Look at the wall between where the horse compartment and the living quarters was. That was a horse body that hit that. Forward head-on collision. Really hard hit. Look at those dividers. The horses' bodies bent those guys. Look what happened to the connection where they normally would have been connected there. This one was pressed so far back it slid past the connector. It's sobering. It is absolutely sobering. But that's why we look at these things, folks. Because I want you to understand your horse is standing there and he's got no protection. He's gonna hit the floor. He's gonna hit in a forward face. In a slant load, he's gonna hit the wall, right? So we got to do all our work to try to prevent those things in the first place so that we don't have these problems, right? It's just awful. Look what happened to this, Brad. I mean, it's amazing. Just amazing. So hopefully you get your horses out. These horses are the best horses on the planet, right? They're just standing there smoking and joking. These horses are doing all the right things. And I'm thinking, man, those are not 2-year-old thoroughbreds, man. If they're on the side of the road with a 2-year-old thoroughbred, you are not just going to be standing there grazing with them, right? It's just, you got to have transport for the horses. Be thinking ahead on that scene. All right, so now let's go to the worst one. This is the absolute worst. This is basically a trailer wreck, being on the road with fire. And it moves so fast, whether it starts in the wheel bearing or starts in the the back of the trailer or if it starts in the vehicle. Firefighters will tell you this vehicle fires, they move so fast. There's been cases where people couldn't get their kid out of the back seat, out of the little, the kid car seat, and the kid got burns. It's just awful. You don't have time to go get your gun, your purse, get a little bag together of all your crap. You need to be figuring out what you're going to do because that vehicle is going to catch on fire faster than you can imagine. Do you have a fire extinguisher? Are you willing to try to make that effort? Or are you just going to say, heck with it, I'm going to go get my horses and get out of here, right? There's a lot of decisions to be made, and that's why we tell people, think about it ahead of time. How does your truck and trailer open up? Do you have to have a latch or a lock or something to be able to get your animals out? There's your fire extinguishers. Now, I want you guys to understand, that was a very good question about whether I use a water fire extinguisher or an ABC fire. Most fire extinguishers are going to be ABCs. You notice, even though mine is mounted, I also use a little piece of tape right there just to make sure that the pin stays in. I don't want to take any chances on the pin falling out. ABC fire extinguishers have baking soda in them, and they are pretty amazing at being able to slow down fires. Fire extinguishers do not extinguish anything. They generally slow it down. They give you time. So whether you use it in your truck or you use it on a fire in the trailer, if you have a fire in the trailer and it's in the shavings, all that's going to do is fill the trailer full of ABC, the baking soda. It's going to make it really hard to breathe and you can't see. Ask me how I know, because I was in a vehicle one time where one of these things went off. An ABC fire extinguisher probably would be better to have a water fire extinguisher in that case. But then you got to make decisions. It's more decisions. Is that shavings or is it metal that's burning? Or is it, is it the wheel bearing that's burning? All those things. Should I use this fire extinguisher or that fire extinguisher? I don't know. Educate yourself, and then you can think through the process, right? It would be nice if people had 2 fire extinguishers, but hell, I can't get most people to put 1. And I like 1 in the truck and 1 in the trailer. Because if your truck is on fire, you don't actually have enough time to run all the way back to your living quarters, get the fire extinguisher from back there, and bring it back up to the truck. You just don't have time. I mean, plus you ought to be getting your kid and everything else out, right? So you just don't have time. And this is proof. That's a mounted fire extinguisher that was in a horse trailer, and it burned because they never got to the fire extinguisher. They didn't have time. It's just amazing. And do you actually know how to use a fire extinguisher? Do you know how to pull the pin and use pass, which is the thing? Go ask your fire department. They'll teach you. I'm in a volunteer fire department. We love it when people show up and say, hey, I want to learn how to use a fire extinguisher. We will teach you how to do it. Ask your local fire department, because most people have never actually done it. This one just happened less than a month ago, and went to sleep, went off the road, had a fire in the truck, and obviously that's what the fire department's dealing with, is the fire, and then they were extricating the horses. It happens all the time. This one just happened a couple days ago. This lady, single vehicle wreck, went off, 3 horses in the trailer. One of them actually had to be euthanized later, because when she went off and the truck burned originally, the truck picture is over here, then it moved to the trailer. And isn't it amazing that aluminum can burn like that? It's just amazing. Once it gets hot, it just goes. Metal burning is just scary. But look at the angle here. So when she went off the road, the trailer went up high, and it basically jammed the back door. That's what I said when I said you need some leverage tools so that you can leverage stuff and cut stuff, right? So they were fiddling around trying to get the horses out of the back, but they couldn't get the back of the trailer open. And her child was burned in the truck fire. That's how fast these things happen. It's just crazy. So take it seriously. If you put into Google images, horse trailer fire, you won't believe how many thousands of images come up. It happens all the time. There's 2 horses in this trailer. That's a big fancy, I don't know how much they paid for that one, but I promise you that one's expensive. By the time this lady realized there was a problem, both of the horses were dead, right? And of course, they always say, oh, it's probably a cigarette butt flicked by other driver. I'm going to tell you, I had a guy at Mississippi State many years ago who put horse trailers in a big wind tunnel, And he'll tell you that that's almost impossible. But what's really possible is that you flicked a cigarette butt and it went into your trailer. There you go. Usually it's not that. Usually what it is a hot bearing, gets really, really hot, gets on fire. Guess what? It's right next to that nice rubber on the tire. That catches, and then that works up into the thing. And if you're not looking in your rearview mirror on a regular basis, and or you don't have a trailer camera in your trailer to realize there's smoke building up in your trailer, you just keep driving until somebody else honked at her and said, hey, you got a fire in your trailer, right? Just awful.
If there was a, oh, go ahead,
Go ahead.
sorry. I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
say, if there was a situation, you had like a cigarette butt or whatever fly in, shavings, a situation like that, is it worth having shavings in the trailer? Is that just one of those things that you got to be mindful of with the
It's
camera?
six one way and half dozen the other, right?
Yep.
So shavings are really important because they catch the piss and the poop and make it easier to clean out, and they prevent some of the damage to your trailer floor and all those kinds of things. Really, to me, I'd rather have the something to keep that floor clean. But then if you've got ventilation problems, you really have to ride in your trailer at 80 miles an hour and see what happens in your trailer, because in some trailers that shavings is just whipping around and ended up in the horse's lungs, and then you got all kinds of problems. So, there you go. For every situation, there's a pro and a con. I can't say what I prefer. I usually, short hauls, I don't use shavings. Long hauls, I use shavings, but I also use those pellets to try to minimize the dust. And there you go. There you go. So let's take a look when it actually happens, right? The truck started on fire, caught the trailer on fire. They lost all the horses. I don't know how they managed to do that. They realized too late that they needed to get the horses off the trailer, I guess. That's the trailer. I mean, it's just crazy. So, got to have a plan. What is our plan? Let's think about tools. So, there's our truck. Let's just say the truck catches on fire, right? Make an effort with our fire extinguisher. We're not able to slow it down. At that point, we go, hey, heck with this. We're going to get horses off the trailer, right? So we made a fire extinguisher. We called 911. Sometimes you're calling 911 while you're doing something with your fire extinguisher, making an assessment. You're also thinking about this as active lanes of traffic. You see where this guy stopped? Right on the white line. That's what people do all the time. I like using, if I can get that trailer over a little bit, get that trailer over, right? Do we have quick access to lead ropes? If your horses are tied in the trailer, do you have to go in the trailer to get them out? That's depends on you, depends on what you're used to, depends on what your horses are used to. But I can tell you, when you're like all of this and your body is like this, your horses are going to be like, something's up, right? They're going to be a whole different horse trying to unload it. And of course, people are not going to stop. People are not going to slow down. So they're going to hear the traffic coming by. And there you go, right? Meanwhile, you're trying to put out cones. This is why you got to have a team. You got to tell your mama or your kid or whatever, you're part of my team. I need you to go put out cones. I need you to call 911. I'm going to try to unload the horses, right? I mean, can you imagine? You've got seconds to make this happen, right? Can somebody chock the wheels of the trailer? Is it possible, if you have one of those cool little lift things, can you get the truck and trailer away from each other? I mean, that sure would be convenient. And I've seen pictures where people have done it. They realized there was a problem. They unhitched the trailer and drove the truck forward, and the truck's on fire. But at some point, there you go. Can you unhitch it? Can you move the trailer away from the truck? You better chock it, because there's pictures of fire trucks that have gotten loose that didn't have chocks on them, and they've gone in the ditch, right? And that would be awful. It's already bad enough you got a fire. You unhitch that truck. Now your trailer's loose, and it rolls into the ditch with your horses in it and flips over. I mean, that would be awful. So
one of the things I would be worried about on this living quarter, you're going to have propane tanks at the front, so gas lines. And then if you look at this particular trailer, it has a roof generator, and the fuel tank is just to the right of the last horse stall. You can see it, the black circular, that's where you're going to put the gas. So it's actually a gasoline generator with a gas tank inside of the manger area, and that's going to be a kaboom. So keep that in mind.
It always amazes me what we do for our own convenience, right? Just crazy. And then, of course, getting the horses away from, get them away. Can you get them, if it's not a interstate, can you get them to somebody's front yard? Can you get somebody to knock on somebody's door and say, hey, can we put my horses in your stall or whatever, right? Whatever works. Get the horses out of the equation if at all possible. And I've got some pictures of that. Here we go. you know, just amazing. Called 911 while evacuating their horses out of the trailer. There's the truck burning. I don't see the fire department doing much of anything. I don't know what's going on there, but there you go. Um, there you go. How much time did I take? I still was less than you, Brad.
Yeah, you were not as
Yeah,
long-winded.
you were only an hour and a half. I think we ran an hour and 59 minutes on the last one. I was pooped after that. I was like,
There
oh,
you
I got,
go.
I had to sit down. You did amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, I do have
Questions.
several questions. I've been holding them for you. I'll just go with them. Here we go. Any resources for route planning with a trailer to avoid things like narrow roads or curves? I guess depends on where you're going.
Yeah. You know what? Google, if you use the Google feature where you can actually go down the roads, I have used that. The problem is if it's a back road, they don't always take their little Google vehicle down those kinds of roads. But, until if I'm hauling a horse for a rescue, sometimes I use that feature because I'm like, I want to take a look at that road. Can I
Hmm.
actually turn around at the other end, right? Because
Okay.
that can be a challenge. So that's a good point. A lot of that comes down to using the maps features on Google, thinking about those kind of things, and what are my alternate routes if those kind of things happen. I think too many people totally depend on Google too much. Get a paper map, folks, because if you lose service, you need a paper map. I Rand McNally still sells their maps. Use that, plan your trip with that. Think about how far you're actually driving. And I think that may be something that happens to people too. Hey, it's only 500 miles. Yeah, well, 500 miles on a back road or out in, Slovakia is a lot different than 500 miles on the interstate out west. If you
Hmm.
come to Atlanta and you got to drive 50 miles, you're going to be exhausted, right? Versus 500 miles out in Nevada where you can just cruise.
Yeah, someone said there may even be like trucker apps that you could pay for
I'm
potentially.
sure there is. I'm sure
Yep.
there is.
All right. Let's see. Going back to this was just a random question. So Julie asked, can you speak to the trend of do-it-yourself LQs in bumper pull trailers and the danger of excessive tongue weight? And Brad, you can chime in on this as well.
Yeah. So I often tell people, it's amazing. There are some horse people who can put more crap in the front of a trailer than the weight of the horses in the back, right? If you look at for the way trailers, the physics of trailers, and if you haven't seen it, you should go look at Google or YouTube and look up some of the folks that do trailers on these the running treadmills. They put these trailers on these treadmills and they move the weights around on the back of the trailer on the camera.
I've
And
seen
it's
that.
really good because it shows you what happens when you get a quote jackknife or you have a change in weight or what. So where's the horses usually supposed to be? They're supposed to be over the axles, right? That's the plan for the way the trailer is made. That's not always true because you have some trailers that are goosenecks that the physics works differently. But in general, that's what's supposed to happen. And most of the manufacturers, and Brad can tell you, um, are not expecting you to put 10,000 pounds in the living quarters area, right? I mean, Brad?
Agree. To the question of the do-it-yourself in a two-horse bumper pull, we don't build a bumper pull trailer for two horses with the living quarters. It's simple physics. To put the horses centered over the axles have to be in a very specific spot to do that. When you're going to add a living quarters in the front, depending on if you're doing a bathroom and a sofa and all of those things, it's going to add excessive tongue weight. And you're almost always going to, unless you're towing with a dually, which you recommend, but most folks are looking, I'm going to tow it with my half ton Dodge or my Chevrolet Tahoe, right? Things like that. And we're just overloading the tow vehicles. That's where a lot of these single accidents happen. They start to sway around. They don't have enough tow vehicle to handle that excessive weight. We build one in a one horse only because we know exactly where the horse is going to be at all times, and we put the axles where they're supposed to be. And you can, sort of manage the tongue weight in that respect. But two horses and above in a living quarter, it should be in a gooseneck all day, every day, no questions asked.
I absolutely agree. And I've seen goosenecks where people put so much weight in the front, it's terrifying,
Oh,
right?
same. Yeah. Yeah. Same.
And I've been guilty because I've held, I went out last year to Kentucky to help a girlfriend move, and I tried to get her to tell me how much she had to move in my trailer and, being a good friend. And they kept on bringing out boxes, bringing out boxes, bringing out boxes, and it's medical books and all these other things. And I was like, hey, guys, you're going to have to put that in somebody else's trailer because at this point, I can't weigh it for sure, but we're getting up there in weight, and I'm not taking a chance, right?
All right.
It's my safety as well as, and that's just that's not horses, that's just books and crap, right? Not worth it.
What do you say to folks who potentially bought maybe a used trailer and they don't have a manual and they want to know things of like how often to check the floors, the bearings, brakes, etc.?
There is a lot of resources on the internet, and I know Brad and Caleb, you guys have put a ton
Hmm.
of webinars out there. I've got a bunch of webinars out there. There's a link to my YouTube playlist. I've got about 60 friggin' free things on there as resources. There are some publications as well. What I tell people is that's my cell phone number and that's my delphiacres@hotmail.com. That's my email. If you're specifically worried about resources, I would take a look at that. One resource that I really love is done by a girlfriend of mine up in Indiana, and it's put out by Purdue University. And if you put in Purdue University horse trailer rig, you will get that publication. And it is through a university. She did it, and she is a mechanical engineer, and she also has horses. And it is everything that you could ever think about how to maintenance and do your horse trailer. There are some other resources that are out there. There's a couple of books that are out there. I know Robert Eversole, who I've introduced to Brad and Caleb already. He is working on a book on the basics of how to do those kind of things. And it doesn't matter what brand. In general, Brad made that point last time. All the manufacturers have the same resources. It's not like they have some special magical thing for just double D trailers, right? Everybody has the same resources available to them, and they can make those choices on what kind of hitches they're gonna use, what kind of axles they're gonna use, what kind of tires you're gonna put on it, those kind of things. Um, so you're all in the same pot together. The maintenance has to be done on a regular basis. To me, it all depends on how much you're driving and how far you're driving. But letting it sit for 2 years before you get in it again isn't the solution either, right? It doesn't just get better sitting there.
Yeah, like for repacking your bearings and stuff, that a lot of that's going to depend on how often you use the trailer. I think we recommend usually at least twice a year, but
Yep,
if you're using it multiple times a week, you probably need to do it sooner than that.
yep, yep. And that's,
Um,
when I go talk at the National Horse Carriers Conference, they're hauling things around in both the big, 10 or 12 horse commercial carriers, but they also have some of the small trailers. Like, they haul from New York down to Ocala, but then they get to the center thing in Ocala, they load it on another smaller trailer, a gooseneck usually, and they move those around. But those trailers, they're putting 100,000 miles on those trailers a year. I mean, they're moving a lot. So those trailers are going to have. And the thing is, nobody keeps up with how much mileage you've got on your trailers. Most people
mhm,
just don't. They don't
yeah,
put those little the little
odometer.
yeah, little odometer that goes on the
Mhm.
wheel. Most people don't have those on their trailers, and so they don't really know how far they're driving unless you're keeping up with it and charting it somewhere.
I actually just had a customer who sold hers reached out to us to list it, and she kept exact mileage on her trailer. I was like,
There you
that's
go.
awesome. Yep,
Yep.
she sure did. So definitely, I mean, if you're talking maintenance wise, I think that's super important to be able to know that and have it as a reference point.
And find a maintenance person you know and trust and use
Hmm.
them. I use Allison Creek up in Athens, Georgia, and I've been working with them for the last, I don't know, 6 years. And I've had them do some maintenance on my trailer. I've had them do some welding, cut the nose off my 2-inch nose and put on a 2 and 5/16 coupler. We've done some major things on my trailers, and I keep going back to them because when I sit down to talk to them, they had the right answers, and they have been working really hard to show me that they are doing all the right things. Find that person. It may be an RV trailer place. There's very few horse trailer specific places, right? But find them. And in this case, it's 2 hours from me. I don't care. I mean, if I pick up the phone and ask them some questions and they can give me good answers, that tells me a lot. And then when I go to their shop and I can walk around and look, then I realize, hey, they do know what they're talking about. And I ask a few questions of their employees too, right? Because sometimes the boss knows what they're doing. You know, Brad knows what he's doing. And Caleb is like over there in the corner, right? I mean, sorry, Caleb.
How you
You're
gotta
the
do me dirty
best.
like that?
You're the best
Oh,
son-in-law. Anyway,
dang.
He
but
really
you
does
know,
do that.
Oh,
but that's important, right?
yeah. Um, any organizations that you recommend? I know you said you're in Georgia, so southeast. What about the northeast of the U.S. that offers like hands-on training for fire departments and stuff and how to respond to crashes? Or even just
So,
maybe not northeast specifically, but just throughout the United States. I'm sure that's
yep.
something that most folks would want.
So I go to Portugal, guys. I go all over the United States and Canada and Portugal. I've been to, you name it, I've been there. I go everywhere. But most of the time, what we're talking about with training fire departments is getting them started on what I'm showing you right here. You take a look at that webinar playlist, you are going to know a lot about technical large animal emergency rescue. From the prevention side, how to prevent a barn fire, how to prevent some of the problems with your horse trailers, how to look around your facility safety, thinking about social license and welfare for your animals. You're going to get a dose of all that stuff. If you watch all those webinars, you won't need to go to a class. I mean, I'd love it for you to show up at a class, but we're hosting one actually next Monday and Tuesday in Georgia International Horse Park. I've got people that are flying in from other states to attend that class. So take a look at, send me an email. I'll send you the information and you can get there by Monday.
Nice.
Love to have you.
What do you think about services like US Rider, like the roadside services? Maybe not
Okay.
them specific. Some might ask about them specifically,
Yep.
but I know there's some other ones out there.
US Rider, Trail Guard, there may be some other ones. I'll just tell you, AAA ain't going to help you with your horse trailer. And you find that out the hard way. That's what I found out the day that I was telling you all about the transmission problem. And AAA said, well, we don't do horse trailers. You can unload your horses from your trailer and we'll drag your truck up to the top of the thing. But we were like, that's the day we looked around and said, we need to find something. And US Rider had just gotten started. So full disclosure, I've been associated with US Rider for many, many years. They have helped me get a lot of information out over many, many years. I'm sure Trail Guard's the same. It's a roadside assistance program. And to me, you're at the mercy of wherever you are. What US Rider may do a great job, or Trail Guard may do a great job with their dispatch, but then you get some noodlehead that shows up with a tow truck that doesn't actually know how to handle a truck and trailer. You're totally at their mercy at that point. But generally, I've had good service from that one, and I've heard some really good things from Trail Guard. To me, it's a couple $100. It's good insurance. They will help you. Even the cool thing is, US Rider will help me if I'm in Caleb's vehicle and his vehicle breaks down. I can get help for his vehicle because I'm in it.
That's
It's
awesome.
pretty cool.
Yeah, Jennifer says that is a fact about AAA. Had a friend with a flat tire on their horse trailer, and they would not come out to help change the tire on the horse trailer.
It's a hard lesson for everybody.
Like,
Yep.
you kidding me?
Back on one of your slides, I think when you're talking about the VCPR and the vets, you mentioned a practitioner group that people should check out. Do you remember what the name was?
Yes, that is the American Association of Equine Practitioners, AAEP. If you look up aaep.org, you will find them. And on their website, they have a resources for clients or resources for horse owners portion of their site. And that's all vetted, literally vetted by veterinarians, and good information. They've got a lot of other things that are there too, for colic and founder and all the medical conditions, but also they have resources that will help you on finding a veterinarian.
Awesome. And then we talked about the reflective tape. Someone mentioned that potentially states may have different regulations. Have you heard of that being a situation or an issue?
They do, and maybe California will pay attention, but honestly, I have hauled my trailer and truck through multiple states. You see, that's me, the right behind my head, right there. There's reflective there, there's reflective there, there's reflective all over my truck and trailer. Nobody has ever pulled me over and said, "Hey, you've got too much reflective." That's crazy, right? Um, and really, they don't pull you over for not having enough reflective, because I take pictures of trailers all the time that don't have anything. It's all worn off. So to me, get it, put it on the back of your trailer. If you pull in my driveway or Tori and Justin's driveway up in North Carolina, it looks like NASA, because the backs and sides of my trailers, living quarters, the flatbed, my 2-horse, it is got reflective all over it. And these days you can get wraps with reflective with all your cool guy stuff on it, so-and-so ranch and all that stuff. You can get all that put on there. The important point is be able to get seen. The ones that we see, Caleb, that are really awful are the big living quarters trailer that pulls left across traffic. And you just happen to have a little hill there. You're going across a 2-lane road and you have to turn left across traffic. Somebody comes over that hill, doesn't see you in time. There's no reflective to warn them. You can't see the trailer, and they slam into the back of the trailer.
Yeah.
So reflective on the side, up high, down low, and then reflective all over the back. And then if, God forbid, you're having to unload something on the side of the road, a little reflective on your back doors so that if you have to open them up, that somebody can see there's a problem, because otherwise it's just a big black hole and somebody can just drive right into the back of it.
For sure. What about, we talked a lot about rollovers and you showed several pictures in that, but I don't know that we talked about specifically situations with side ramps. What are your thoughts on if you were to get in an accident and a trailer had a side ramp, is that a pro con or does it not really matter?
To me, I like more access into the vehicle. So if it's a side door, side ramp, yes. If it falls onto the ramp, you're not going to get the ramp open, right? But if it goes the other way, the ramp is going to be a hole that the fire department can use to evaluate the animals, make decisions, all those kind of things. It's another egress. If most of the time the trailer isn't going to flip, it's usually on, going straight and has a catastrophic collision. And then you've got other options. If somebody slams in the back of you, sure would be nice to be able to have that front ramp and or door. If you have a door in the front, just spend the money to get a big enough door that's big enough for a horse to come out. In the old days, in the 70s trailers, they used to have what they called a jockey door, and I was like, I don't know, Brad might not realize this, but I'm 6'2" and a little over 200 pounds. So am I going to fit my big ass through that little jockey door? No. And if I can't go through it, a horse ain't going through it either. So let's get a big enough door that a person and equipment and horses can go in and out of that door to be able to effect a rescue. Because sometimes what you're doing is something slams into the back, you can open that door, get that first horse to jump out the door, take the dividers out, and work the horses forward to get them out. And Brad gave a really good demonstration of that in that last webinar, where he was talking about that one layout of that trailer where you just got no access into the trailer.
Back on reflective tape, we had a couple follow-ups on that. Any place in particular where you would get that? You mentioned,
Look
I think,
up
3M specifically.
Yeah, I like 3M diamond plate conspicuity tape. I practiced saying that word many times, conspicuity tape. 3M just happens to be the best. The stuff that you see on that trailer behind me right here, that was put on in 1999, and it is still there. That is 25 years later. There are a few little pieces that are starting to wear. It sits in the sun. The stuff is still on there. There are cheaper versions. You're just going to be replacing it every 10 years. So if you need a cheaper tape, because I know the 3M stuff is expensive, I buy it by the 100-foot rolls. Next time you ladies have a birthday party for your horse friends, buy them a roll of reflective tape instead of buying them a little crappy basket full of soaps and all that crap. get them some reflective tape. And then if you're really a friend, go help them put it on. One roll of reflective tape will do an entire trailer. $100, maybe a little bit more these days.
All right, just two more questions and we'll let you go. We had multiple about this. Breakaway halters. What are your thoughts on those?
Okay, so the game is, guys, put something on the horse that is probably going to stay on the horse. Make the breakaway thing up on the trailer. Okay, so the hay string, equine ping, piece of plastic, zip tie, something that will break under catastrophic things. Hay string breaks, the orange hay string breaks about 80 pounds working load. So in a wreck, the horse just goes like that with his head, he's going to break it. They're that strong. Okay, then he's got his halter and hopefully a 3-foot lead, which is your tie that you had on him, or you tie the lead rope to your piece of plastic. Now, if the horse is in a situation where he gets his head trapped in something, it might be nice to have a breakaway halter on him. But the problem is, on the side of the road, I don't want to be trying to put a halter on him in the trailer. That's a bit of a challenge, especially if it's 2-year-old. So the way some people have gotten around that is they use older leather halters. A horse can break a leather halter. That's why a lot of the thoroughbreds have leather halters on, because they're easier to break, right? You're gaming it. It's all a chance, but my preference really is a good halter and a good lead rope to something that will break under catastrophic load.
Nice.
Then you still have a halter and lead rope on your horse to lead him out, especially if it's on fire.
And then last question, and any questions I didn't get to, guys, I can send you some follow-up after this. But a couple of folks have asked about the dividers, because we saw that particular video where the dividers were bent. So is that a situation where it's just best not to use dividers, or?
No, because if you don't have a divider, then all the horses go slam forward, and then they slam into the first horse, right? And then they scramble to get up on top of each other and all the things. That sometimes happens anyway. So there's no easy way to game that. I'm a big fan of good quality dividers that can take that kind of, I don't know what the build of that trailer's dividers were, that can take the impact of that body slamming into it at that speed. There's some things that are just catastrophic, and maybe we can't actually engineer or design for that. You saw that the clip where the swing gate slides into that clip, and where that clip was, it failed because of the weight. And then the bending causes it to change configuration in the clip, and then it fails, right? That's really hard. I mean, that's some serious engineering right there. And I promise you, Brad was looking at that, and he's like, I need to take a look at that, because that's the way his engineering mind works. You can always find worst case scenarios. I'm a big fan of box stalls for horses in transit for their welfare. That's obviously the best way to do those kind of things. But if the horse is in a box stall, then it means that his body can theoretically go further, which means it can go faster when it hits the wall, when you hit that thing. They don't go, hey, we're getting ready to have a wreck up there. I need to get up close to the wall so my body doesn't go as far. Doesn't work that way.
All right. We have, man, I've learned a lot. I don't know about you guys. Rebecca, I don't know if you knew this, but we had just under 2,000 people sign up for this webinar. I think it was 1,900 and some change, and hundreds that have and are still with us have remained with us for almost 2 hours now. So thank everyone so much for your time. We'll definitely be, sending the recordings back out and the links and all of those things over the next couple of days. But I can't thank you enough for taking your time to share just obviously a little bit of the vast knowledge that you have on this. And look forward to maybe doing something again in the future. Education's what it's all about.
Anytime. It's education, and we're always getting people into the industry. People leave the industry all the time. So we got to put that information out. I encourage you guys to take a look at those webinars on that playlist. I encourage you guys to share this, because it's been recorded, and Brad's going to put it up on, and Caleb are going to put it up on their website. I will share it as well. share it out because it's all about prevention, folks. Yes, there are catastrophic situations, but if you do all the prevention and you have the right attitude and all the tools, it sure does make it easier to survive the wreck.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
later. Bye.
Bye.